Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm really excited to show you how to install the Carla simulator with Unreal Engine 5 on Windows and build it from source. This is the latest version of Carla, and it brings a lot of improvements and some amazing possibilities for creating realistic autonomous driving simulations. I know setting it up can feel a bit tricky at first. I made a few mistakes myself along the way. But don't worry, in this video, I'll guide you step by step so you can avoid those mistakes and get everything running smoothly. So grab a coffee, watch the video till the end, and let's get started. Before we begin, just a quick disclaimer. I recommend watching the complete video before you start your own Carla installation. I'll walk you through the process step by step, and I also point out the mistakes I made so you can avoid them yourself and save time. We'll follow the official documentation step by step, and I'll point out tips and mistakes to avoid along the way. Compared to installing Carla with Unreal Engine 4, this method is much simpler and more streamlined. So this is the homepage of the documentation. Here you can see the guide specifically for building Carla on Windows with Unreal Engine 5.5. We'll be setting up the environment, building Carla from source, and getting everything ready to go. One important note, if you're building Carla for the first time, you need to link your GitHub account to Epic Games. You can do this by following the link provided in the documentation. It's a pretty straightforward process. First, create a GitHub account. Then go to your Unreal Engine dashboard and connect your GitHub account there. I won't show that part in detail here, since I already covered it in one of my earlier videos. I'll leave a link to that video in the description if you need help with that step. All right, moving on. The first step here is to clone the UE5 dev branch of Carla to your machine. Just copy the link shown on the screen, then paste it in the folder where you want to keep your Carla files. For this tutorial, I created a folder called CARLA UE5, opened a terminal in that folder, and started cloning the Carla repository. You can see here on the screen, the cloning process has started. This might take some time, depending on your internet speed. While it's cloning, let's look at the next step. Once cloning is done, you'll need to go into the CARLA UE5 folder and run a batch script, a .bat file, provided in the repository. This script takes care of installing all the required dependencies for you: Visual Studio 2022, CMake, Python 3.8, Unreal Engine 5.5, and also downloads the Carla assets and builds the simulator. It's worth mentioning that the build process can take quite a bit of time, so be patient. The documentation also notes that you can use Python 3.9 or 3.10 as well. The script uses apt to install Python if it's not already on your system. But if you already have Python installed on your computer, you can tell the script to use your existing installation instead. You can quickly check if Python is installed by opening a command prompt and typing where Python. Here, you can see on my screen, Python is already installed on my machine, so I'm not going to install it again. When running the batch script, you can pass a command line argument to indicate that you already have Python installed, which can save some time. While Carla is still cloning, let's take a moment to understand what the CARLA setup.bat file actually does. If you go to the Carla GitHub repository, first make sure that you're on the correct branch. It should be UE5. Then open up the CARLA setup.bat file, and you'll see how it works. This batch file supports several command line arguments, such as -interactive, skip prerequisites, and -launch. For example, if you already have all the prerequisites installed on your system, you can use -skip prerequisites to save time. There's also a -launch flag, which automatically starts Carla after building. And importantly, you can specify a -python root if you already have Python installed and don't want the script to install it for you. Now, let's take a quick look at where it handles these prerequisites. If you scroll through the batch file, you'll see it calls another script inside the util/setup/utils folder. Open that script and you'll see what's being checked and installed. Things like Ninja, Python, and Visual Studio. By default, it expects Python version 3.8.10, but versions 3.8, 3.9, and 3.10 all seem to work fine. When I run python -- version, it shows Python 3.8.10 is already installed on my system. So I'll use the -python root argument and skip installing Python again. If you scroll through the batch script, you can see how it sets up the Visual Studio components, what exactly it installs in Visual Studio, and also where it accepts command line arguments for the Python path. So, if you already have Python installed, you can pass your Python path as an argument here and skip reinstalling it. Further down, you can see where Visual Studio is downloaded. The script fetches the installer from the link mentioned, and it installs Visual Studio with all the required components. It also installs Ninja, which is used later to build Carla. You can see in the script where Ninja is downloaded and set up. All of this is mostly informational. You don't need to change anything here, but it's good to understand what's going on. At the end of this section, the script also installs the Python packages listed in requirements.txt. So this part of the script, which is in the install prerequisites.bat, is pretty straightforward. If you go back to the main CARLA setup.bat file, you'll see the next steps. First, it clones the Carla content from the Bitbucket repository. This includes all the assets and resources Carla needs. Then, it activates the Visual Studio 2022 Native Tools command prompt, which is required to build Carla properly. After that, it downloads Unreal Engine. Like I mentioned earlier, it's really important that your GitHub account is linked to your Epic Games account. Otherwise, this step will fail. If you're asked to log into GitHub here, make sure you have your username and personal access token ready. Once that's done, it downloads and builds Unreal Engine. Finally, the last step is building Carla itself. The script uses Ninja to compile everything. And if you provided the -launch command line argument, it will also launch Carla automatically after the build completes. So that's a quick walkthrough of what the CARLA setup.bat file does. Now, let's move on and actually run the script together. All right, now that the cloning is done, let's move into the CARLA UE5 folder and run the CARLA setup.bat file with the -python root argument pointing to my existing Python installation. I already checked my Python path earlier, so I'll use that here. One important thing to note here is that you don't need to include python.exe at the end of your Python path when you pass it as the -python root command line argument. But here's the first mistake I made, and this is really important. I originally cloned Carla into a folder called CARLA UE5 with a space in the folder name. Turns out the setup script doesn't handle spaces in the folder path very well. So when I ran the setup, I got an error saying something like, eCarla is not recognized as an internal or external command. After some digging, I figured out that the space in the folder name was causing the problem. So I deleted that folder, then cloned Carla again. This time directly into my E drive without any spaces in the folder name. That solved the issue. Next, I ran the CARLA setup.bat file again, this time giving it the correct Python path. All right, so at this point, Visual Studio Code starts installing. You can see it downloading and then launching the installer. Here, the Visual Studio Community 2022 version is being downloaded, and this part can take some time. So I'll fast forward the video so you can see the final result without waiting too long. While it's downloading and installing, keep in mind that the entire Carla build process takes quite a while because we're building everything from source. So be patient and let it run its course. Once Visual Studio is installed, the script moves on and downloads Ninja, which completes pretty quickly. But then I noticed an issue. The script started downloading Python 3.810 again, even though I already had Python installed on my system and had even provided the Python path when running the script. So I stopped the installation by pressing Ctrl-C and decided to investigate why it was still trying to download Python. Here's what I found. When I ran the command where python3, it pointed to a path in the Windows Apps folder, but that isn't the correct Python installation. Then I ran where Python, and it showed me two paths, one in Program Files on the C drive and another in the Windows Apps folder. The correct path you should use is the one in Program Files, not the one in Windows Apps. So I corrected the Python path and ran the batch script again. To double check, I ran the command you see on screen, which confirmed that Python 3.8.10 was indeed present in that path. I replaced the incorrect path in the CARLA setup.bat command with the correct one from Program Files. But then I ran into another problem. Because the folder name Program Files has a space in it, the script couldn't handle it properly, which is the same type of issue we faced earlier with spaces in the Carla folder name. After some research, I found a solution. Instead of writing Program Files directly, you can use its short name equivalent. So I updated the path to use the correct format, and this time it worked. The script detected that Visual Studio and Ninja were already installed from the previous run, and now it also recognized the correct Python installation from my system. So it skipped downloading Python again. Next, the script proceeded to download the Carla content from Bitbucket. This also takes a little bit of time, so just let it complete. All right, so at this stage, the Carla content finished downloading, and the script moved on to cloning the Unreal Engine repository customized for Carla. As you can see here, Unreal Engine is a pretty large project, around 25 gigabytes, so this step takes a while. I fast-forwarded the video so you don't have to wait for the whole thing in real time. Once the cloning was done, the script started setting up Unreal Engine, generating Visual Studio 2022 project files, and preparing the build. All of these steps are automated, so you don't really need to do anything here. Just let the script run. However, I ran into a problem. Partway through the process, my disk space ran very low, and the Unreal Engine cloning couldn't complete. I checked my E drive, found an old Carla Unreal Engine 4 folder, and deleted it to free up some space. After that, I ran the setup script again with the same command. This time, the script skipped installing Visual Studio, Python, and Ninja, since they were already installed, and went straight to cloning Unreal Engine again. I fast-forwarded the video here as well. Eventually, Unreal Engine finished downloading, and the script moved on to setting up and generating project files. But then, another error occurred. The script paused and asked me to press a key to abort. I wasn't sure what caused it, so I ran the script again. This time, it didn't seem to download anything new. At this point, I suspected it could be my antivirus blocking something, so I temporarily disabled it and tried again. But the error persisted. Then I realized my internet connection had dropped during the setup. I reconnected to the internet, ran the script once more, and it started working properly again. But yet another issue popped up. The script stopped and complained that my CMake version was too low. It required at least version 3.27, but I was running 3.553. So I downloaded the latest CMake, version 3.31, and installed it. After installing, I double-checked that CMake was added to my system's environment variables by checking the path. Everything looked good. Running CMake version confirmed that I now had version 3.31.0. So I ran the script again. Yes, I know, I ran it many times. This time, the script proceeded further, but then I noticed something odd. It started building Carla before building Unreal Engine. That didn't make sense because Unreal Engine needs to be built first. Clearly, something was wrong. I checked the logs and saw a line that said, "Found Unreal Engine for Carla," which shouldn't happen unless Unreal Engine is actually built. Somehow, Unreal Engine's build step was skipped, and the script jumped straight to building Carla, which would fail. So I stopped the script with Control-C and decided to investigate why the Unreal Engine build was skipped. Alright, so at this point, I noticed that the Unreal Engine build step wasn't actually happening, so I went back to check the CARLA setup.bat file to figure out what was going wrong. Here's what I found. The script simply checks if the Unreal Engine Carla path already exists on your system. Basically, it just looks for the folder. If the folder is there, the script assumes that Unreal Engine is already built and skips the build step. But in my case, and maybe in yours too, the folder existed, but Unreal Engine hadn't actually been built yet because the previous run of the script failed partway through. So it incorrectly skipped building Unreal Engine and went straight to building Carla. That's a problem. At this point, you have two options. Delete the Unreal Engine Carla folder completely and rerun the CARLA setup.bat script from scratch. This works, but it can take a lot of time since it downloads and builds everything again. Or do what I did, build Unreal Engine manually. Luckily, the commands to build Unreal Engine are already inside the CARLA setup.bat script. You just need to run them yourself. This is also very similar to how we used to build Unreal Engine manually in earlier versions of Carla. So here's what I did. I opened a new command prompt and navigated to the Unreal Engine Carla folder on my E drive. Then I ran the setup.bat file from that folder. This starts downloading the necessary files and dependencies. It's about 20 gigabytes, so it takes some time. I fast-forwarded the video here so you don't have to wait. Once the setup.bat script finished, the next step was to generate the Visual Studio project files. Again, this command is also already in the CARLA setup.bat script. Just copy it and run it in your command prompt. Once the generate project files.bat script finishes, the next step is to build Unreal Engine. You can find the exact msbuild command inside the CARLA setup.bat file. Just copy that command from the script and paste it into your command prompt. But here's the problem. When you try running msbuild in a regular command prompt, you'll likely see an error that says something like MS-build is not recognized as an internal or external command. That happens because MS-build is only available in the Visual Studio 2022 Native Tools command prompt, not in the normal one. So here's what you need to do instead. Open the x64 Native Tools command prompt for Visual Studio 2022, then navigate to the Unreal Engine home folder. Once you're in the right folder, paste the MS-build command there. I did that here. At first, I pasted the wrong command by mistake, but then I copied the correct MS-build command from the CARLA setup.bat file again and pasted it into the Native Tools command prompt. This time, it worked. Unreal Engine started building properly. As you can see, it's compiling over 6,000 files, so this step takes quite a while. Be patient and let it finish completely. Hopefully, after this step, everything should proceed without any more issues. While the Unreal Engine build was running, I ran into another issue. Once again, my E drive was running out of space. Honestly, I didn't anticipate that Unreal Engine would require so much disk space. I already had about 250 gigabytes free, but somehow, that still wasn't enough. Unreal Engine is just that massive when building from source. So, I paused the build and cleaned up some files to free more space. I also reorganized a few folders on my E drive to make even more room. Once I had enough space cleared, I restarted the build. Remember, you still need to run the build command in the Visual Studio 2022 Native Tools command prompt, as we've been doing all along. So I ran the MS-build command again, and the Unreal Engine build started over from the beginning. These are some of the mistakes I made earlier, which is totally understandable since it was my first time installing and building Unreal Engine 5 from source. I didn't know exactly how much space or time it would take, so of course, I made some missteps along the way. Hopefully, this time it'll succeed without further issues. Alright, so at this stage, the Unreal Engine build was finally running again, and this time I felt confident it would succeed. It does take a lot of time because Unreal Engine builds thousands of files, so I fast-forwarded the video here while it ran. Once the build finished, I saw that it was successful, which was great. But before moving on to build Carla, I wanted to double-check that Unreal Engine actually launched properly. To do that, I navigated to the Unreal Engine folder and found the unrealeditor.exe file. Then I simply double-clicked it to launch Unreal Engine. After a bit of waiting, as it compiled shaders and loaded everything, Unreal Engine 5 opened successfully. That was a big relief, because it confirmed the build was good and everything was set up correctly. Now, with Unreal Engine working, I moved on to build Carla. For this, I used the CARLA setup.bat script again. It's easier than building manually. I opened a command prompt and ran the same script as before, adding the -python root and --launch arguments this time. The script skipped all the previous steps, since Visual Studio, Python, Ninja, and Unreal Engine were already done, and it started building Carla. One thing to check here. Make sure the environment variable for the Unreal Engine path is set correctly. You can check it in your system's environment variables. If it's not there, add it. Carla uses this path when building. So Carla started building, and everything seemed fine. It even showed green messages saying that Carla was successfully built. Next, I tried to launch Carla using the command from the documentation, but I got another error. This time it was hard to understand, so I suspected that something went wrong during the build. While troubleshooting this issue, I checked the official documentation again, and it clearly mentioned that the command should be run in the Native Tools command prompt for Visual Studio 2022. So I opened the Native Tools command prompt, navigated to the project folder, and ran the command again. But unfortunately, I still got the same error. At this point, I started to believe that the error was likely caused by a problem during the Carla build itself, rather than the command prompt or environment. I tried a few more variations just to be sure, running the command with different arguments, double-checking the paths, making sure environment variables were set, but nothing worked. So before completely deleting the Carla folder and starting over, I decided to make one final attempt, running the CARLA setup.bat script again, this time explicitly adding the dash launch argument, just as it's written in the script. So I copied the launch command from the CARLA setup.bat file, ran it in the native tools command prompt, and same result, the same error appeared. At this point, it was clear to me that something had gone wrong during the build process, and the easiest and cleanest solution was to delete the entire Carla folder, clone it again from the repository, and start fresh. So that's what I decided to do next, delete the broken Carla folder and reclone it to ensure a clean build. Let's move on and see how it goes this time. After cloning the repository again, I ran the CARLA setup.bat script with the -python root and launch arguments. This time, the script skipped the already done steps, downloaded the Carla content again, and started building. I fast-forwarded this part, as it does take time. But then, another error appeared. A required privilege is not held by the client. That basically means the command prompt didn't have admin rights. So I closed it, reopened the command prompt as administrator, and ran the same command again. This is really important. Make sure you run the command prompt as admin during these steps. At this point, the script is essentially going through the same steps we've already seen. It checks for Visual Studio, Python, Ninja, and Unreal Engine. Since all of these are already installed and set up properly now, it skips those steps and goes straight to building Carla. The build process itself is still quite long. More than 900 files need to be compiled. So again, patience is key here. I'll fast forward this part of the video to save you time. And this is exactly why I recommended at the very beginning to watch the entire tutorial first, because I made quite a few mistakes along the way, and now you can avoid them and save yourself hours of frustration. While the build is finishing, let me quickly summarize the main mistakes I made so you can avoid them. 1. Using a folder name with a space, like CARLA UE5, which broke the script. Always use folder names without spaces. 2. Passing the wrong Python path while running CARLA setup.bat. I mistakenly chose the one from Windows apps instead of the correct one in program files. 3. Running out of disk space midway through the build. Even though I had about 250 gigabytes free, Unreal plus Carla together needed more. Make sure you have plenty of space before starting. 4. My internet connection dropped during the build, which caused errors in downloading dependencies. Always make sure you have a stable internet connection throughout the process. 5. Having an outdated CMake version. The script requires at least version 3.27, but mine was 3.25. I had to manually update to a newer version. 6. The CARLA setup.bat script skipped the Unreal Engine build because it wrongly assumed it was already built, simply because the folder existed. This forced me to build Unreal Engine manually. 7. Trying to run the ms build command in a regular command prompt instead of the Visual Studio 2022 x64 native tools command prompt. 8. Not running the command prompt as administrator, which caused privilege not held errors later when launching Carla. If you keep these points in mind, your build should go much smoother than mine. Once the build finished, the Unreal Engine editor launched and began compiling shaders. That also takes some time, but it's normal, especially on the first run. Be patient while it finishes. After a few minutes, Carla finally launched successfully. The default downtown HD map loaded. This map is quite graphics intensive, so depending on your system specs, you might want to try a lighter map if your system struggles. Next, I started the simulation and moved around a bit to test it. Everything worked fine. I also spawned a vehicle by running the manual control.py example script from the Python API examples folder. The Pygame window opened, a little slowly, and I noticed the server and client were running at different FPS, probably because of the heavy map and my system's RAM being almost full. I pressed P to enable autopilot on the vehicle, and it started moving. So it worked, although my system was clearly under load due to the intensive map. At this point, I decided to close it down, but it was good to see everything working properly. So that's the full installation tutorial for Carla on Unreal Engine 5, built from source on Windows. You can now try different maps, examples, and scenarios from the Python API folder to explore more features. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope it helped you avoid the mistakes I made. If you found it useful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be posting more Carla-related tutorials soon. See you next time.